Jesus said, "Man cannot live on bread alone, but from every word that proceeds from the mouth of God." You're listening to Daily Truth.
So real quick, a Christian Mythbuster round that is very, very necessary. We might, you might be aware of, from time to time on the Christian internet, the people ask questions, like, well, who are the least of these in our culture? Well, the least of these in our culture is this category or that category. A lot of times, one of the popular answers would be, well, the least of these in our culture are immigrants. I remember, I believe it was Stephen Colbert. This was a few years ago, but he said exactly that. He said, well, my faith tells me to care for the least of these. And people, who are immigrants, these are the least of these. And they're being underpaid to do work that we don't want to do. And he's wrong. That's not what the Bible teaches. And so I'm going to give you a balanced view by God's grace. I'm going to do my best this morning. But I want you to understand what the Bible teaches. So first, Jesus says, whatever you do for the least of these, my brothers. Here's the key word, brothers. When Jesus says you visited me in prison, he's not talking about visiting someone who is in prison for theft and they're a pagan. If you visit them, you visited me. No, he says, whatever you've done for the least of these, my brothers. He's actually talking about a Christian deliberately choosing to visit a Christian in prison. The implication being, assumption being, that they're wrongfully imprisoned and being persecuted for preaching the gospel, and other Christians at the cost to their own safety and security are visiting this Christian who's locked up in order to care for them, in order to bring them supplies, to pray for them, to commune with them, because they are a Christian. Whatever you do for the least of these, my brothers. Another text to cross-reference, to give you more than just one scripture. This is the same principle that we would find in Galatians chapter 6, where it says, as often as you have opportunity, do good to all, but especially the household of faith. That is to say, as often as we have opportunity as Christians, we should do good to all people. We should, whether they're Christians or not. But especially, but prioritize the household of faith. Even the late great Jewish historian Josephus, who was not a Christian, in commentating on the first century Christian church, he said, it is a very peculiar thing that someone who was impoverished could become rich virtually overnight simply by joining the ranks of the Christians. Because they shared everything in common. They took what they had and they would lay it at the apostles' feet so that it would be dispersed. Not that anyone would have lack, but that those who had lack would have sufficient provision. And the scripture in the book of Acts goes even further and says, and so there was not one in need among them. Not one in need among them. Now, what's being said there? There was not one. They eradicated poverty in the city of Jerusalem. No. There were still plenty of poor people in Jerusalem. They eradicated poverty in the church in Jerusalem. The church was cared for.